So what we are interested in now, and I'm doing it, this is really just for her to be able to remember what's been said. So based upon what you heard in the opening, are there any questions that you have or concerns, or what are you most interested in hearing about in the trial?
Where's the mother? And then, you know, he's having behavioral problems. Well, a lot of that comes from the home. So his parents obviously got a divorce, and I kind of know a little about the story. The mother's left. That is very disruptive for a young child. And so where are the parents in this? I mean, dad, and then he has a girlfriend.
Well, and I said girlfriend to you guys, I'm sure they're not gonna refer to her that way.
She's not a girlfriend.
Well, she's not anymore. She was. And the question is, we had a question about how to refer to her.
Yeah.
She was on the pleadings, and we got her, they're off the pleadings. She is the one who started all of this.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that's what I think. I think we ought to say
How was she
girlfriend.
entitled to be on the pleadings in the first place?
She got a guardianship. Right. So, what do you think about our referring to her as the girlfriend? Because that is what that was her only status. We could say guardian, I think that sounds more like,
No.
right,
No.
court ordered something.
Yeah.
She wasn't the
When
stepmom.
did she initially enter the picture in terms of
Eighth
his,
grade.
in age, but for him personally,
Eighth
in the
grade.
home, it wasn't until eighth grade?
It was middle school.
Yeah, it was 8th grade, and he was disenrolled in 10th grade. 8th grade was the year, I believe, after the parents' full divorce, maybe?
But there was things that led up to the divorce that he was probably witnessing.
Yeah, I think
Which
mom,
explains all those behavioral
mom
problems.
first left in like 6th grade,
Yes.
but I think the divorce took some time because I think she just left. She took the sister and didn't take him, and some people think that caused a
Oh
lot
my
of resentment.
gosh, that answers a lot of questions right
Yeah,
there.
but by sixth grade, these things were set in stone a long time ago.
Yeah.
I have I mean. I-
Correct, no,
I have
absolutely.
children, these things happen, this started in elementary school and it never got any better.
What grade did he finally get an IEP?
He got an IEP starting in 1st grade.
Yeah, he's had it from initial, he had it when he started school. He had
So,
all these
from
things.
1st grade to 6th grade, what was the mother or parents' participation? It's not just where is the mother, it's what kind of participation was in school? Because if I don't read off my card and I talk personally, I had a kid with an IEP. And I was at the school, I made sure they knew who I was. And I wasn't always doing something for Chad in his classroom, but I would volunteer for anything, just to have a presence.
Yeah, and his, elementary school, case manager will be able to talk about how dad was more of a buddy-buddy with him and less of an authority figure. I mean, they attended IEP meetings, but other than that, we don't know much about their involvement in the school. I
Well,
don't think
mom
they
was the
were.
only one, I think, who signed the IEPs early on,
Yeah,
not dad.
it was Carrie signed.
Was he medicated?
On and off.
But the mother did all this and then she left and then dropped the ball on the father. And then,
Well, one would argue the father had the ball all along, but.
yeah, but, I mean,
The other thing I would say is, we went along for a long time with the history, which I think is appropriate, because I think it started early on. I think it was evident before he even got into the school system that there was a familial thing or a physiological thing going on with him. And he couldn't adapt. And it might have been a medicational issue, just from personal experience. And then all of a sudden, I'm not sure, I know COVID looms large in a lot of the school systems, but a lot of the school systems managed through it. I personally know the Clarksville Montgomery system, so I know
Yeah.
they managed through it, but his issues were so far
witnesses who weren't sure what years COVID was, and so we thought it might be good to remind the jury of, like, specifically with Matthew, it was those 2 years, but I think
So-
we can bring it down.
When you mentioned that he was one of the first people brought back in person, like, what does that look like time frame wise compared to other students, his peers? Like, how was it that he was brought in before others?
My understanding is he was brought back as soon as his 10th grade year started, and at that point, there was in-person hybrid classes or people who wanted to stay fully online because they wanted to be, they didn't want to be in person.
So I think, and
So
I asked,
think he was given the choice.
Well,
I think he wasn't the only student in the school.
I think the reason I asked that is because I think thematically, you know, what you can use is really hit on the investment that the school system has put into Matthew. Like, I mean, we've got the literal faces of the investment, these teachers that you have up there that are going to tell the story of the time and the commitment and the investment that the school system has made in him, only to have him bail out, you know, for whatever reason, and the jury can speculate, whether it's girlfriend, you know, let the jury talk about that. But have the jury understand, because the other side's gonna talk about money, they wanna talk about money. Let's talk about the money that Clarksville has put into it. You don't have to say it money, but if you frame it as the investment over years and all these people that you're gonna hear from, you can then talk about COVID, how that's just another example of where other kids, you know, their kind of status was hybrid. The school system wanted to make sure that they were able to do what they needed to do to help Matthew out. And that was bringing him back in person, to give him the hands-on instruction that they thought was, you know, was best for him. And so, I mean, we can talk about it more, but that's where I think if you frame it in terms of all, and you've done this in what you've laid out, but if you frame it in terms of everything that the school has invested in him, and you get the jury thinking about that, you know, then you come back at closing and you really talk about everything that they did for him. And this wasn't just over a year, this was over a decade, you know, plus. Only for him to say, all right, I'm out of here. And then they want to come back and ask the jury for $1.6 million after all this time. That, I think you can, thematically, I think you can play with.
You've sold Talia behind you. You're getting a lot of
That
thumbs
is-
up.
It's
there.
true, but it's
But it is, I was like, why did he get to come back? Did all the special ed kids get to come back during COVID?
I think it was a push for more, Tilly can answer better, but.
It was.
Was it
different
individualized on their needs, or what?
Some, yes.
Okay.
You know, we had many students that were in CDC, the comprehensive classrooms, where they were not able to access their education as well outside of the school system, more so in person. So they did look at those groups as being a high priority. I think Matthew would have fallen into that group, but I do not recall how they did high school. High school was looked at differently because of credits.
I know Ginger and Dad were emailing the principal constantly, being like, what's gonna happen, like, he needs to be back in the school, so, I think.
On the COVID issue, if you're gonna bring it up, you need to be prepared to show how it affected things. Don't just say, remember it was COVID, and things were hard. You need to show, if you're gonna bring it up, then emphasize it, how it made it harder.
Well, the one thing I would say, and Tyler, you may correct me if I'm wrong, Montgomery County school systems the kids are issued computers early on. They've had computers throughout, they carry through elementary school, middle school, high school. So there's still the, you know, COVID doesn't loom as quite as large, because they still have the ability, but if you can't read, I mean, and all you have is a computer sitting in front of you, or if that's not your focus, and your focus is only your interests and hands-on, I mean, that's, the schools offered up everything that they could possibly do, and the continuum of education could go on, because they've got all the information in front of them. So that's, you know.
But a part of what played into him coming back in so early was because Dad and girlfriend, I think you hit girlfriend, Dad, they were, you know, requesting that the school system prioritize getting him back in. That's what it's in his best interest. Okay, well, you know, we agree, we're gonna develop this plan that's gonna prioritize him and his learning. Let's get him back in the school. That's just another example of the school system doing, what they can to try to serve his best interests or investment in him.
What are the criticisms specifically from the other side?
He can't read.
He can't read.
But what did
that
we do wrong?
We gave him ADHD interventions and accommodations instead of dyslexia ones.
The dyslexia interventions we gave him were not effective. We should have known they were not effective early on. They really don't show a change on the IEPs, although they were changed in reality, which is why we have so many teachers coming in. But he's got the work, and I don't know if you wanted to hear this, he's got what's called mixed dyslexia, which is the most severe type. So no one is going to say, yes, he was gonna be able to read at grade level at any time. But we also don't want to bash on Matthew.
Yeah, I
because
was a little concerned about all the yellow bubbles.
Yeah.
I couldn't read what they said.
They just said
It
behavioral
said
report.
behavior report.
Oh,
Cause
okay.
I was
And
gonna
it's
put in.
a little piling on it, and I felt like.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I was gonna ask y'all to
I don't
handle that. I was
disagree.
gonna put in like the specific, but I figured Justin would object to that.
I couldn't tell if
I
they
don't think
were
it was anything with
interve-
what you said, I think
No.
it's all the yellow.
Yeah, and I noted a lot of yellow bubbles. One thing I wonder if you would want to hear is because we didn't really discuss in the opening, the actual reading interventions, the snap and read, the tutoring, the one-on-ones. She mentioned it a little. We had a few of the teachers up there.
It became confusing because the behavioral programs change, and you're using the acronyms and stuff, but it might benefit at the beginning if he starts with an IEP, what that entails, this is what it entails, and then understanding, okay, that's an IEP, it might get tweaked, and then when you start with the other, to then have a graphic to say it encompasses this, rather than the constant, we had an IEP, then I did the BPI or whatever, BIP, and then, to go on. After a while, you're kind of like
Yeah.
okay, this, all right, that. And it may be at some point to give a brief understanding of what that entails.
To what you were saying, Rebecca, I don't know how long a list you could make, but if you could, at some point in there, say, here are all the things that we did for him, stack it
Yeah.
up on the board. Here are all
Yeah,
the-
so we're walking a bit of a fine line on a legal ruling from the judge, which is we don't want to open a door by saying early on that the IEPs were per se effective.
Right. The district
Because-
Court's ruling.
Well, the court didn't rule. The court's holding in abeyance a ruling that could be bad for us, but is right now good for us, which is there was an IDEA case, which I will now disclose to you, against the school system for Matthew, which we won at the administrative law level, saying, yes, we provided him an adequate education, which the district court Judge Trauger overturned and awarded him compensatory education, which is all she can award, to be fair, in an IDEA case. And she said the IEPs were not adequate to provide him the benefits of an education as they did non-disabled students. That one reason we emphasized the COVID in the last IEP is because her opinion did not encompass after the dyslexia identification in the final IEPs, and then he was pulled out. So that's something that you haven't heard yet, and you can only cover so much in opening. She's limited to 25 minutes. But I think the IEPs, and so they're arguing that we should be precluded from arguing that the IEPs were adequate because it's already been ruled on by Judge Trauger in a prior case. It's the final order of that case. They have some case law that says, yeah, the standards are sort of different. They still have to prove intentional discrimination and indifference. But that ruling would take out of the hands of the jury, which is our argument, it's a 403 argument, as if they couldn't rule any other way on that. And the judge has indicated he agrees that that's more prejudicial than probative because the standards aren't exactly, but there is Eighth or Ninth Circuit case law that says that you look at them together. So we're not trying to open that door.
To Jason's point though about pushing that, he's been provided since he entered kindergarten with the IEP and all the programs that the school district has offered him, whether or not they were sufficient, I mean, that's,
That's what I'm saying, and so you would want to hear about
Yeah.
the snap, and, I mean, you're right, he got that, computers, they've got text to read, he had somebody who was able to read to
Right.
him to get him through tests. His comprehension is not the problem. He also, would it be of value for you to know that he progressed in math? Because that is what he was most interested in, because that involved the construction and the measuring,
Yeah, you would have to,
the things he was interested in, he would progress in. The things that he didn't want, and of course, their argument is going to be, I think, disingenuous, at least early on, that we were masking reading difficulties by claiming he was a ADD diagnosis. Of course, we didn't give him that diagnosis. The parents had a physician who gave him that diagnosis, and we had nothing to do with the medications.
I don't think it has anything to do with me having an IEP or anything else. I mean,
Right.
they pushed kids along regardless. They, without intervention, that may have had similar issues that
Right.
didn't get detected. I mean, he
Yeah.
wouldn't be any different just because of his IEP.
Right. So,
I think for your opening, you can talk about, in regard to the legal issue there, you can talk about all the accommodations without specifically
yeah,
saying
that's what I think.
the IEP was adequate,
Yeah.
just.
What I'm
here's
hearing
what
is
we
they
gave
wanna
them.
hear what we were
Yeah.
providing,
I think it
not
goes
the
to
behavior as
investment
much.
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
you know, and go ahead and get it out there. I would say it out, if you can, it out there.
Yeah. Thank you, I know you guys have other things to do. If during the day you've got input, please, I mean, absolutely we wanna hear it. This has been valuable, and the opening will be tweaked. Because again, it was her first one, and it's hard to give an opening to people you know.
She did it very well,
She
very,
did a very good job.
you know, your voice was very steady and very, you know, tonally the same.
Mhm.
Don't mess with your hair. It's hard not to do.
That's one reason we're filming.
Yes, but yeah, and, you know, you didn't get too caught up in all the acronyms and everything else that goes with it, so that was good.
I would cut out about half of the I expects.
I would
I
cut
didn't
out
know
all
how
of them.
much I was allowed
Yeah,
to
but I
say.
know where they came to, and I know she can get rid of them. The judge
Right.
also gave some instruction about not talking about what the proof is going, definitively about what's going to
Yeah.
be proven. But,
So you can't say, you will hear from so-and-so?
yeah, I think you can, yes.
I don't
I-
know,
I
the way
think
the
she
judge
was-
said it, I was like, I guess I can't say it.
Again, I think there's a bit of wariness, because this is the first time she will
Yeah.
have been in federal court, but it's Judge Campbell.
Yeah,
I don't think you will hear is gonna make any difference. I don't think you have to say it every time,
yeah.
and that'll shorten that.
You will hear, or you'll learn from so-and-so who
Mhm.
will tell you, that type of stuff. And if you've got a good faith basis, that's what the proof's going to be.
The proof will show.
Well, that's a little more problematic.
Yeah.
I think that's the one he's trying to get rid of, but yes, you can go that far, and those people will testify. What did you think about the pictures, if we fill in all the pictures of the witnesses?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's, yeah, I think it's
Good.
good. I think it brings, it makes it more personal.
The face for
And that's right. These are the people that the plaintiff are being critical of. Let's look at all these teachers. You know, they're not putting CMCSS on trial, they're putting the teachers on trial. And if you frame it that way, it's a whole lot easier to blame the school system than teachers. So,
Talia, we'll need your picture, we'll need, Purdy, and we'll need,
The construction guy just, I was thinking of hammer.
I love that. I thought a minute about, oh gosh, and then I thought, no, because that is who he is. That's honestly who he is.
They'll get a laugh. They'll get
he's gonna
And-
testify live at trial?
Yes, and he is we're ending with him, he is that
And
great.
he loved Matthew.
He loved
He loved Matthew
That's
and
awesome.
says blames his dad.
I can see that, because, the mom did it, the mom left with the other child, which I did not know that. And then the girlfriend comes in and she takes over. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Oh, it's 100% where it was.
And then
And you're
now
gonna
they
be
broke
forgetting all
up.
that, the family background?
Yeah,
I think you need to put the family background
a
in.
little bit, it's not completely clear. And they are going to, one of their big themes besides he can't read is, and you're gonna hear the school system blame Matthew and blame the family, and they weren't the professionals. These professionals shoved him through for 10 and a half years, and he cannot read.
Well, he could participate to what, in IEPs to what age? 14.
At 14, yeah.
Well, you can present those facts without blaming anyone.
Yeah,
he's only got 25 minutes.
Get
No,
color.
no, I'm not even talking
I
about.
agree,
opening.
but I think-
Add a little bit of family
I think that, and I think
It's a little-
girlfriend.
The mother leaving and taking the other kid, that's a pretty traumatic
And-
thing for kids.
And you're not blaming Matthew. You're
No.
giving color, and what you're doing is you're putting in the jury's mind, it's not Matthew's fault that he was born in this situation.
Well, I think the first question being where were the parents kind of clues you in, and that's the same
That's
thing,
been everybody.
that's been
Yeah.
everybody's
And
reaction.
I don't know that, I wasn't talking about this has to be brought out in opening.
No, yeah, well, it's
The
coming out through the
family's
teachers.
background.
It's gonna come out through the
Um,
teachers, that's not a problem, yeah,
But it raises the question, this is what people want to hear about
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
right.
People like me.
Been real useful to hear that though, and, you know, that Julia got, you know, got what is our weakness, which is he's pushed through, I mean, these have been,
Well, I can relate to both spectrums.
Mhm.
I've got a grandchild that went through that from the very, very beginning. In Williamson County, very accommodating, very everything. My daughter was always at school, always doing, and you appreciate how hard it is with a daughter that's a teacher who deals with kids with IEPs and all the special accommodations that you're trying to make for them, even at the high school level. And these kids that have gone through the system, teachers are there because they wanna help and do. And if they have a child that needs the extra, they really make an effort for it. So it has to really pay, but parents have to be a big part of it, and it has to be constantly reinforced. There comes a point where there's only so much you can do, and the child has to respond at some point. The behavioral issues most likely were medication to some degree, and that's in the home. And whether or not they take them, at high school level, you tend to think, maybe I don't need to do that all the time, and you wanna back away from that. You don't know if that's the situation, so, that's hard.
How are they gonna refer to girlfriend?
I don't know, I'm really enjoying.
Probably representative.
Yeah, she's on their witness list, she has to,
Ex-girlfriend.
she has to because she wrote all the emails to the school,
Mhm.
which is, we're gonna put, I mean, they're there. I mean, she was the one banging the drum, you haven't done enough, and she is the one that said, we don't see any reason for another meeting, you haven't changed anything, and then boom, there was no other meeting, they pulled him out. To a homeschool with no intervention.
I mean, that to me, and I think I would even, as you're transitioning towards the end, one of the things I noted was, and again, this, I'm caught up in the theme of investment, and you know
Mhm.
this, and then all of a sudden, you know, let's transition ahead to high school, this, and you'll hear that after all that investment, after all that time the school system has spent, you know, dad and girlfriend decided that the best place for him was in their home with a homeschool program.
With no
Where he's
intervention.
not, and for the last, you know, he's not received any further, he's not received this and this and this. All of this, you know, prioritized, special, however you wanna say it, you know, plan for Matthew's success was taken away from him, and he hasn't received any of it since he left.
I like that. for
And we
Matthews.
were
It's the
seeing
plan for
progress, we were
Matthews.
seeing some progress.
We were, and
And then-
that last year,
Yeah.
they didn't allow it to.
Because that sets up your argument at closing, why is he where he is right now? Why did, you know, they're claiming that the progress stopped and that he is stuck in this lane, which is where he will be for the rest of his life. That's their claim. And they claim that, you know, that's the road he's on, you know, however you wanna frame it. But keep in mind who put him in that lane. You know, that he was making the progress this, and the parents decided to remove him and, you know, enroll him in a homeschool academy and teach him in the home and take away all of these, you know, priority, you know, investments that the school system had made in him.
Well, there was no teaching in the home, they both had jobs, full-time jobs.
Well, there you
The
go.
mom was a busy realtor,
There you
or
go.
girlfriend.
Girlfriend was a realtor.
Busy realtor,
Yeah.
and then, what is
The
it?
school system, was it
He's a
in
welder.
that once you elected?
No,
to-
he's
No, he's
Engineerish,
production.
Supervisor.
production
Production
supervisor, yeah.
supervisor. Because like, if you made the decision at the beginning of the year, coming out of COVID years or whatnot, if you said, I wanna be home, you never got a chance to go back into the system for the year.
No, that's not correct.
You
They-
could opt back in.
Yes.
Well, their expert says with 3.5 to 4 years of focus,
All their experts say that.
but they didn't do that.
Correct. You have now hit upon our large argument as why it's not settled.
That's it, I mean, when
Why
you
this
think about
case is not settled.
the path that he is on, they put him on that path. Because they haven't provided him with any of this that we were providing him, and that their own experts say would, get him to go where he wants to go.
Can you document his improvement during, like, by the time he hit ninth grade or?
No, there really wasn't much, but there was after the final reevaluation. Of course, his behaviors got better. And then after the final reeval, then you had COVID, which is why we sort of say COVID. But then you do have documented improvement for half a year after that reeval. And then, so you didn't have the opportunity to have those new interventions that were now being tried again. And of course, does it make any difference to you that the manner in which you intervene in these types of dyslexic situations evolve rapidly?
Right.
And so in his first, second, third grade, you did not have the interventions. And even in fifth, sixth, seventh, you didn't have the interventions the way they can be provided now. School system interventions evolve, as does the science.
Sure.
I don't think we can emphasize that so much, because really you've got, also, does it make a difference to you that this is the 7th largest school system in the state, and you have 32,000 children, many of whom have IEPs? That make a difference?
I think it's something to mention, but not harp on.
No, but I mean,
You
that.
don't wanna,
yeah, okay.
we're overwhelmed and we can't do it.
No.
You don't want
No,
that
but
to
it's
be-
also, we have resources.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't,
Yeah.
Perry County. We've got
Exactly.
resources, we can deal with this, and
Mhm.
that's what we do.
And, a couple of times the emphasis was on the behavioral issues rather than the inability to perform the work. So that, the school system can only do so much. They're not there to correct your behavior, they're there to educate you. And so without the ability to always get that in line, that's also not, an IEP can't always address some of
Well, the behavioral issues disrupts the interventions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I'm getting the feeling that we de-emphasize that a bit, add in the accommodations and the interventions for the the learning disabilities.
Essentially, what you're trying to show is that from the very beginning, he had resources, he had IEPs. You can't, the behavior part is not anything that you can really, that's not what he was there for, to emphasize all of the ability and all of the intervention and all of the people that were stepping in to assist him from the very beginning. They didn't forget him, they didn't go long periods of time where he wasn't either reevaluated or there wasn't, in some way it wasn't addressed, and maybe that's your
Right,
emphasis.
so like 23 meetings over
Right,
10 years,
exactly,
okay.
yeah.
What if we change the terminology from behavior to what his true deficits were, and that was the executive functioning? So that's what falls
understand?
under.
That's confusing.
That's
I
confusing.
think-
Yeah.
I didn't think that, I don't know what that means, so I think that made a lot of sense.
Behavior, keep it simple, behavior, and I think you can use that to emphasize the efforts that were made by the teachers to, accept him where he was, to meet him where he was. And this was not someone who had challenges from a learning, they were trying to address that in the context of someone who also had behavioral issues.
Which probably stemmed from his home life.
And that jury,
Yeah.
there's gonna be somebody in the jury
And,
that's
I
gonna
mean,
be trying to put all that
you can
together.
see it. His mom, it was all in middle school and then it got better in high school. Is that when the girlfriend came around?
Yeah, so you caught it when she said Carrie Brock, his mom, and then we went to
Yeah.
Ginger, the girlfriend.
But you need to say specifically mother and I
Girlfriend.
think you should
I'd
say
say
girlfriend.
I think you should say girlfriend.
Toward the end, there were
Representative,
a lot of
it
names
gets a little
thrown in that you were
confusing.
trying to associate.
Mhm. But when did the girlfriend and him break up?
After the due process
Yeah.
hearing.
Sometime during the lawsuit.
Okay.
Maybe you can say, maybe you could just put a jab in if it makes sense. Ginger, girlfriend, well, actually not ex-girlfriend, but,
So
we're
they
his
were
girlfriend.
never married?
No,
Now she had,
And how did she get a guardian?
They signed it over.
He agreed
EOA.
to.
because I think the father just
Yeah, I think former girlfriend maybe.
I'd say ex-girlfriend.
Girlfriend at the time. I mean, it's weird to say, and the ex-girlfriend was contacting the school, I mean,
The then-
why would the school talk
the
to her
then
is the
girl-
question.
The then girlfriend was.
Then girlfriend, yeah, that's probably,
Was the mother involved at all after she left?
She went to a different state.
well, they don't get along, mom and dad, at all.
Oh, that.
And the belief in many of the teachers is that there's such a resentment to the female teachers stemming from the experience with mom abandoning him. And there was a lot of defiance, disorder, and yelling at teachers and foul language around that time.
So when you list, like in several times, especially by the time you went to high school, where he was hard to keep in the classroom, he was either out of school, it's always, behavior, attention, instead of emphasizing the behavior, you can make it seems as though that once he could attend to what was happening before him without saying he was so bad, it was really bad behavior, that's what they're gonna.
Yeah, I think that's in your words, but not in the chart. So I think she did say once he could attend,
Yeah, she did, but
Yeah.
after behavior, it's always control, it was control behavior, then attend and whatnot. So just the fact that to de-emphasize the bad behavior, but emphasize the protocols in place for him to be successful once he was into the classroom.
It wouldn't hurt, I don't think, the first time you mentioned behavior, to say, this is part of the disability. This is like Talia was saying, this is part of the disability, and the executive functioning, and, so you're not blaming him for poor behavior, it's more.
That was my
Yeah.
concern.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was the initial qualifying condition for special ed was behavior, with ADD, ADHD.
So maybe you start there.
It's true.
That's
Although,
why I say when you
yeah.
start, when you, at the beginning, to emphasize maybe a more all-encompassing, what an IEP might encompass, what the others might encompass, and that he had the ability, and it was geared to him, but these are the types of things to which one would have access to once you're evaluated, and kind of leave it more generic at the beginning, so you have an idea of what it is, and not get at him all the time for his behavior, so it's not so personal. to
remove
him.
the behavior bubbles.
Yeah.
All right, so and I know you all have to get back, but really we do want to hear anything that pops up to you, and we'll be tweaking this. But, so is there anything that after the voir dire, you were not asked that would have been important for her to know about any prejudices you might have to
Well,
this particular
Someone wants
case?
that Morgan and Morgan.
The problem, I think, is that
Well,
stuff,
no, it's all arbitrary, I'm just saying.
that would have come out in the judges, like,
It
what
would
do you
have,
do?
it would
Well,
have.
I'm a
what-
welder.
That's what,
Yeah, he's a
so she's
welder.
like, why didn't you ask me if anyone had legal background? I was like, well, the judge asked that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
I'm
we-
a
the sheet
welder, my
we
father
get-
is a defense attorney in Alabama.
Yeah, the
I
sheet
thought
we get
Brian
also
said that
gives you,
yesterday.
their occupation. It's not given.
Yeah, some of that is arbitrary, but if you have that in your mind, assume you know it is, whether she asked it or not, should you have been stricken as a juror?
You want to see who I struck?
Well, I wanna see who should have been stricken. Mr. Retired Cop.
Yeah, Mark was giving me nothing.
Well, and the only note I had was, if somebody's not talking to you, you need to ask him, and about that time you asked him the question, so that was good.
I kept
I mean,
looking at it
mine
like.
was a child with ADHD, but that doesn't, you can function fine with an ADHD diagnosis and medication and never have to worry about spec ed or IEPs or anything like that, so that didn't mean much to me.
Talia had dyslexia, and I
Yeah.
don't know that you asked her enough questions about that, but it could be embarrassing too, so we might think if you've got somebody with dyslexia, how to get a little more information about how you're able, what accommodations do you use, what have worked for you, that kind of thing. Have you ever asked?
Did you carry your accommodations into your adulthood?
Yeah, that kind of
Because
thing,
most of my former students have.
yeah. Which would also serve to educate the rest of the jury pool.
Yeah, you could, and you gotta be careful, but like I have kids that were in Clarkson, Montgomery County. Do you try to dig a little bit more to try to, find out about experience or do you just sort of, leave that alone and not wanna taint?
Yeah, I tried to stop touching because he did not like it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not.
And that's just sort of a
touching.
feel, like, ask a couple of general questions to see if you can get, if you think you can get something good, but if not, move on to something else.
I mean, you could start with, do you have a negative impression or a positive impression, and then.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think, would have already come out, because she goes third. I mean, the judge is doing, we've got a motion for him to ask the more sensitive questions, then the plaintiff goes, and then she's sort of follow up.
Yeah. it's just clear.
So this was very arbitrary, this is, I know, very broad brush. So nobody,
I've been involved in a car accident.
I think
litigation
Melanie
that's
should go.
settled. Is that something that the judge would have already asked her?
Yeah.
yes, have you ever been involved in a lawsuit, what
Also,
type?
Mark
was
was
it?
too.
If
You're also
you've
the one that
ever
was
been,
not satisfied with the school, right?
Right.
if you'd, ever shared monitored before, all that would have been asked by the judge already.
Yeah, I tended to strike Melanie. I think she's about the only one that I would have, I don't think we had cause on anybody. What?
We showed Jason and Julia.
Oh.
I'm like nothing. I have no
Well-
life. I'm a homemaker.
Well, you made
Well, we
up
and I
showed
have
Jason
kids.
because
I would
he
be
had a
perfect.
negative experience with Clarksville.
Oh, well, yeah, well, he doesn't know all his kids are accounted for, so.
And then-
But I know that the four, three of which were in the school.
Well, and he thinks two of his may be yours, so I was confused about both of you.
And then we shoved Julia because of the kid with ADHD.
Yeah, but you're assuming that every kid with ADHD doesn't,
They don't always have a
they,
learning
I mean,
disability.
I have 3 grandchildren, all of them have been diagnosed, only one of them went through school his entire life with, an IEP. And his wasn't even, his was more, physical because his vision is impaired and he needed equipment to go through. And that type of thing, you function fine, so that won't necessarily.
I think you're gonna find that a lot of children these days are diagnosed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty
So you're
common.
gonna have a lot of parents with children who have that.
Well, but that's
I think-
but I almost like that because Ginger Fitting made we've got an email where she says, well, we all know that we just medicate kids to calm them down and we shove them through the school system. And so she has some real opinions about that, which I think can cut both ways, but she does have opinions.
Well, you also had negative interactions with the school system, right, Julia?
Huh?
Didn't you have some negative interactions with
Yeah,
the school
we had
system?
that you had negative interactions with the school system.
Well, you made up a
because
lot of your own
kid with
background.
ADHD.
I was
You were
reading
going,
it.
you were going crazy.
You did great.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I was
did.
like, my gosh, that is
I
great.
wrote down that your kid with ADHD had a bad interaction with parents, like you as a parent.
All I have is that I have a child with ADHD.
Oh, I don't know what your card said. I was going off what you were saying to me.
You were,
Yeah,
you were
what you
filling
were
in a
telling
lot.
us.
Yeah. I was going off what you said to
From
me.
personal experience, because my grandson did.
Yeah.
And Williamson County schools are great, but it's a constant battle and it's a constant fight. And if you have 2 parents, which in this instance, obviously we're having issues, if you're not constantly on it with the school, but the school, they provide an awful lot. And at some point, as Hunter wants to hit home, it's at home, and it's parents. I mean, parenting is the toughest job people have, and there's no book for it. And when you have a child with special needs, it's amplified. And you always, my grandson is visually impaired. They went through years where they didn't think he'd ever be able to drive or do any of that. The IEPs that were put in place and the equipment that was provided to him through the school system made all the difference in the world to this child. I mean,
Thanks, Melanie.
they gave him little snacks, he always had computers, he had AV equipment that he carried from classroom to classroom. And they did wonders for him and they provided everything that they could, but at the end of the day, it's whether or not he put the effort in and his parents were there guiding him and advocating for him. That's what an IEP is.
You just can't say some of that stuff out loud. You've gotta